Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Why don't we get together here? We'd love to hear your opinion. You can always reach us, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. And we're talking about animals today because animals have opinions as well. I'm intrigued. We're going to learn all about that from somebody who is the executive director of a great organization, and it's called the Human Animal Connection, where they pair people and pets for many different reasons all over the country. Just a wonderful organization. And she is the executive director. Jeannie Joseph is back with us. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. And I am intrigued. You know, when I see those three words, we say them, animals have opinions. I wonder what that means. I have my idea, but let's go there.
Yeah, well, I'm curious what your idea is. I'm going to tell you mine, but I want to hear yours.
They have thoughts, and they're strong thoughts about what they like and what they don't like.
Exactly.
And sometimes we might minimize them. It's just a dog. No, but there's a lot going on inside their minds.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Well, when I say animals have opinions, what I mean by that is they have thoughts, they have emotions, they have desires, they have intentions, they like what they like, and they don't like what they don't like. And just having that awareness changes how we relate to them, because they're no longer like, fluffy things or little objects. They are beings. They are sentient beings, meaning they have senses, they have desires, they have emotions, they have strategy, they think things through. It changes how we relate to animals, because if you recognize, it doesn't mean that an animal is going to get, we're talking, of course, about domestic animals who share our lives, the cats, dogs, pigs, horses, cows, the animals that share our lives. So, it doesn't mean that your dog is going to have treats 24/7, because they certainly have the opinion that they deserve treats 24/7. So
of course,
it doesn't mean that they're going to get everything they want, just like we're still in a kind of parental role, in the sense of having the wisdom of saying, you can't have treats every hour, but you could have 2 treats a day, or whatever it is that makes sense. So by paying attention to the idea that they have opinions, we get more in sync with them. It creates a different relationship, where it is a relationship. It's a partnership rather than an ownership. So we're moving away in our language in the human animal connection from pets and owners to relationships between sentient beings, animals that have opinions. And when we take the perspective that animals have opinions, what happens is we pay more attention to what they're communicating to us. And when we pay more attention to what they're communicating with us, like any relationship, it improves.
I believe a lot of us don't go deep enough with our pets. We get to a certain point, we take care of them, and then that's it. And I think we either don't know, or we minimize the fact that they run deeper. And like you just said, when you recognize that they have opinions, then you're open to that and actually seeing it. Oh, wait, I didn't realize that they felt so strong about that. It's even when somebody comes into your home and your dog or cat, I don't really like them.
Right.
That's their opinion.
Their opinion.
And there's a reason behind it. They wouldn't just be, I'm going to be selective. That person has jeans on. I don't like jeans. No, there's a reason. And, it may be a trigger. They may have had an issue back in the day. But there's a reason.
There's always a reason.
There's always a reason.
When I was in the movie business, I had a cat, a rescue cat, and this was when I was living in New York City. It was the dead of winter, and she found me, she crawled into my life, literally. And I discovered that when I would put a couple of scripts down on the floor, she would, kind of sniff each one, and she would sit on the one that she liked the best. I'm not saying that I would make my decision based upon how my cat sat, but I would consider it, and I would realize she had very good taste, and she was always right.
Interesting.
So that's going a little beyond, but it's amazing with people. I had this one cat named Wolfie, and he knew men better than I knew men. I mean, I was young then. He knew who was a good guy. Right. Like instantly. Right. We're not talking like, after 3 dates. We're talking like instantly. Wolfie would know, okay, this is a good man. I'm going to sit on his lap. You know what I mean? And that was like, I really started to pay attention after making a few mistakes of not paying attention, I realized, wow, there's something that they're sensing. Like you say, it's not the genes, it's not the color of their hair or something like this, or, it really is their energy, their spirit that the animals are tuning into and perceiving and recognizing, and either choosing to move towards that person or away from that person. And when we see that, it's really important to pay attention, because they often are seeing something that we're overlooking.
You said the energy word, and I'm glad you went there.
E-word.
Yeah. And I was just about to, I was thinking it when you said it. And it
Yeah.
even goes back to those scripts on the floor.
Yeah.
Some people can say, okay, yeah, right. Everything is energy, even
Everything.
this
Yeah.
piece of paper has a
Right.
certain energy to it.
Right.
There was an intent when whatever's written on this paper was done. Same thing with the scripts.
Yeah.
Even when you look at a picture, there is an energy imprint. I call it like an energy DNA. If
Right.
a picture of somebody, there's something there. It's a
Mhm.
different energy from a live being, but maybe that cat was picking up on the energy from that script.
Absolutely. I mean, I really came to see that there was something in the script that the cat picked that was important for me to pay attention to. And I did. I mean, the movie business is traditionally challenging. There's a saying that nobody knows anything in Hollywood, and that there was one studio producer who said if he had said no to every project he said yes to, and yes to every project he had said no to, he probably would have made the same amount of money. You know what I mean? So it really, there's a lot of mystery involved, but it was so interesting to see that. And that put me into partnership and a respect for her opinion in a way that, it really changed our relationship when I recognized, wow, this is something cats are really so smart.
And I would even dare to think that maybe the energy that you put into script B, ABC, script B was really the one that you liked. And there was a certain intent that went into it, even subconsciously, and you put your energy imprint on it, and your cat animals so amazing and so tuned into energy that maybe your cat just figured it out. Yeah, this is a good one.
Absolutely possible. I mean, it's so, we may never know all of the variables, but what we know is that something happens. They're sensing some energy, whether it's from me, to me, from me, around me.
Right.
I don't know. But I'll tell you a story about, have you ever heard about Paul the octopus?
No.
So this was an octopus. I forgot what country it was, but it was somewhere in Europe. And they gave him two of the football teams to their football, the rugby. Well, I forget what it was now, but it was it was a World Cup, whatever it was. And he had to pick these two countries, and they gave him two flags in the aquarium to pick. And he correctly picked the winner of these run-up games, including the final winner, 4 out of 5 times, which is higher than chance. And it got to the point where the teams were like freaking out. Like if the team didn't, like he didn't pick their team, they had a bad game. You know what I mean? It was really complicated. What was he predicting the future? Was he influencing the future? But it was a worldwide phenomenon following Paul the octopus as long as he was alive. And it was a huge thing when he died because he had such an accuracy rate.
I've heard those before,
Yeah.
where animals predict the Super Bowl, or they'll throw 2 things on the ground, 2 logos, and then let the dog have at it and walk over, and whatever one, the dog makes the decision.
Yeah.
Whatever the dog does on the logo. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
What about freedom of choice? Why is that so important?
Well, especially because I do a lot of volunteer work in shelters, and animals, thank God for shelters because they protect the animals and they give them food and water and shelter, and these are so important. But one of the things the animals don't get in a shelter environment is any freedom of choice. They don't get to choose whether they're inside or outside, what time they eat, when they can go potty, if they go for a walk, who can they engage with. They get all of their choices taken away from them. And this is why animals in the shelter begin to rapidly deteriorate. And after about 2 weeks of not making any choices, there's a kind of giving up that happens, or a kind of aggression that happens, one way or the other, depending upon which way the animal is inclined to go. But it's the lack of choice that reduces dignity, reduces a sense of autonomy. And for people who have animals at home, they are also at the mercy of our lifestyle, when we're home or not, or when we walk or when we feed, and all these different details. And so it's really important for mental well-being to find elements of choice that the animal can choose. And these can be so small. Like one of the examples I give to my clients to help them get started reconnecting with a sense of choice is to take a treat in both hands, both fists, and just present both. And there's treats in both, and the animal gets to pick which one they're going to have first, and then they can have the other one. So it's not a guessing game. It's about letting the animal make a choice about which hand they want to get the treat from first, and then they get the second one, or two different bowls of something delicious, maybe two different things they get to choose. Anytime they're using what I call the chooser brain, which is my term, I don't know that that's a technical term scientifically, but I consider there's a part of the brain that does choosing. And what we see in animals who've been deprived of choice is that all kinds of things go downhill in terms of their sense of self and their sense of well-being. And when I take a dog home from the shelter, as I sometimes do to just give them a day off, and I just let them be in the yard, and I watch, and I'll sit there and I'll watch them for half an hour, and I'll watch them make, first 5 choices. Do I want to go lay in the sun or the shade? Do I want to drink water, or do I want to have contact with me? Do I want to play with the other dog? Do I want to watch the birds? All of these choices you can see their spirit coming back. And it's just beautiful to watch. After just a short period of time, they're in a much more receptive state for me to do the healing work that I do, the soothing touch and the energy work, because they've had some, half hour to an hour of just making choices, and they're simple. But so one of the things we want to do, like when we're on a walk with the dog, sometimes the walk has to be, we don't have that much time, and it just has to be about doing their business. But whenever possible, if we can do a walk that includes letting the dog stop and sniff wherever they want for however long they want, letting them choose the pace of the walk, maybe even the direction of the walk, just letting them have some portion of the walk where they get to lead. And this goes against the old style of thinking that the human has to dominate the walk in order to be, the alpha human, the big, strong person or whatever. And this is all nonsense. It's not good for animals. What's good for animals is for them to have partnership, which means that sometimes they're going to follow your lead, but sometimes they're allowed to lead themselves. And that's a very good for well-being. And one of the things that we see, I've worked with 4,000 service members and with PTSD. And one of the things that we see with people with PTSD is that they have what I call chooser burnout, meaning that their chooser brain is fatigued. It's worn out, and choices become even like, did you ever see the movie Hurt Locker?
I did not.
Okay. Well, there's a scene where he comes home. He's a bomb EOD specialist. He comes home, and his wife sends him to the grocery store to pick the cereal. And there's, 100 types of cereal, and he just gets overwhelmed. But, why is this, you know what I mean? His chooser is so worn out that just to make this choice of selecting the cereal is literally a traumatic moment. And so what happens is that people, like if they've been in the military or a dog in the shelter, they've had their choices taken away. Like in the military, you have a uniform, you're told when to eat, sleep, and poop, and what you have to do, and you don't get a lot of choices in many situations. And so what happens is the chooser muscle, I think, gets weak, and then choosing becomes stressful. And so people will either, in that situation, will either make a rapid choice just to get out of the tension of having to make a choice, or not be able to make a choice. Either of those two things are very debilitating. And so we have to help those people basically recover their ability to make choices. And we do it with tiny things. What color shirt do you want to wear today? Just like littlest things, take the pressure off of it and build that muscle back up. And it's the same thing with animals. The more we can give them freedom of choice in small things, it's not going to be huge things. It's going to be small things. Do you want to sit on the couch next to me now? Do you want to, look out the window? Whatever it is, whatever choices that you can give them will help heal them physically, mentally, and emotionally.
You bring up so many great points.
Thank you.
And this is the stuff that we don't think of. I don't want to say that we take our animals for granted.
No.
But even what you said in regard to not having the ability to make choices as a pet.
Yeah.
Well, look what happens to adults when you have seniors.
Yeah.
That
exactly.
Let's say they're not driving anymore.
Right.
Let's say they ended a job.
Yeah.
And scientifically proven, there begins the decline of
Yep.
their health and
Yep.
well-being
Yep.
because they're not making choices. They're not
Mhm.
in the same active mode. And I think we all, when we hear these stories and the thoughts that you're giving us today, we internalize it and then place it on our own pets. So
Mhm.
I'm doing it
Yeah.
right now. I
Yeah.
moved
Uh-huh.
about a year ago. I
Yeah.
sold my house in between houses, not a great time to buy. So I'm in
Right.
between.
Yeah.
It's all good,
Yeah.
great where I am.
Uh-huh.
However, I don't have a
Uh-huh.
backyard.
Yeah.
So where
Yeah.
it used to be, my dog would just stand by the back door or just
Right.
go, "Meow." I'm
Right.
like, all right, door open.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Have at it, boy. And,
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
minutes later, he comes back, he barks, I let him in.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now.
I
And
know. Yeah.
and I feel bad. Like now that I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
that was his life and he's 6. So that was his life for the majority by far. And
Uh-huh.
now that choice has been taken away.
Yeah.
He goes out when I take him out.
Exactly.
And it's very different.
It
Very
is. It
different.
is. Yeah.
Hmm.
And not everybody has a backyard, and that's the reality of human and dog life together. And so what we want to do is find little ways in the house where you can play these choice games, where he gets to pick something. And it could be a small thing, the treat hidden here or the treat hidden there, and you lead him and let him find it. And that, some of these little things can help balance that, because in the 50s or the 40s or the 30s, people who had dogs, they were free running, a lot of them. They had the run of the town. They would
Hmm.
come home for dinner. And of course we can't do that now. We don't have that kind of safety, but we need to find the little ways that we can respect the animal's opinion. So it could be anything, such as, like, you decide you want to pet your dog right now or visit with your dog. Notice when he's done and he wants to get up, and let him go. You know what I mean? So be aware that he has an opinion. Yes, I want your petting, but I've had enough, and now I'm going to go sit over here. That's a choice. And we want to honor that, rather than thinking, oh, he doesn't love me, or he's not wanting to engage, or what's wrong with me. Or it's not about us. It's about the fact that they need to feel that freedom of choice. So there are a lot of ways that we can ameliorate the situation, that they don't have the kinds of freedom that they had in previous times, or like when you had a house with a yard, those kinds of things.
How important is it
To what? Have a yard?
No, I wish soon.
Yeah, you will.
The freedom of choice, to
Yeah.
give your animal the freedom of choice. Is it truly important? Because when we first started talking about it, I'm like, seems, it's nice.
Yeah.
To provide him with that. But the more we talk about it, the more I see how important it is. Really, it should be a priority.
It is. Well, if we look at the pie of wellness, it's a big slice. It's not the only slice, right? But it's an important slice. And it's one of the ones that we as humans need to be deliberate about. And, even if you look at how the immune system functions, and like they don't get to choose what they eat. They eat what we give them. And, sometimes we mean well, and we think that pretty package or that expensive brand or whatever is the right one. And lots of times it isn't, but what's the dog going to do? They're going to eat it. Right. And like you and I said before we came on the air, sometimes they put additives to make the dogs go, wow, I love it, but they're not getting the nutrients that they need. And fundamentally, the ability of the nutrients, we have to have a healthy gut for a dog and for a person. And when the cells can make the right choices because they have the right nutrients, the dog is going to be healthier. And so it goes all the way down to the cellular level. Do you know what I mean? That when cells are functioning in the right way, they make the right choices to fight the bad things and not go after the good things. But when everything is in an imbalanced state, then it becomes diminished. So choice is a really important slice. Now, obviously, if the dog has no food or water, that's much more a priority. If a dog doesn't have a house, that's a priority. If the dog doesn't have people, that's a priority. So, there's certain things that are certainly higher up on that hierarchy of need. But once we have those basics, like most people do when they're taking good care of their animals or share their lives, the next thing they need to think about is this emotional well-being, this mental well-being, the spiritual well-being that comes from the ability to make choices.
And it's so easy.
It's so easy.
And fun.
It's fun. Just play this little game of put 2 hands behind your back, bring them forward. Which one do they want? Change next time, do it differently. The treats, whatever, just playing games like that. A minute of choosing is very healing for the dog. It's as simple as letting the dog sniff when they want to sniff on a walk. That's a choice. If you can say, okay, that dog, that smell is important. That's helping the dog to reset their brain to, engage with the world in a way that's right for them. So it's very balancing for them. So if you can give them some choices on the walk, that's great. If you can pay more attention, even in an apartment, to when they want to go out, that's giving them choice. If they realize, oh, he responds to my standing at the door and looking at him, okay, I'm going to do that. That begins the communication, the connection, a good relationship. If you're ignoring the signals your dog is giving about your opinions, they'll stop signaling. They will give up.
Do they? Yeah. Is that, you talked about chooser burnout before, in humans and a little bit in animals. Is that giving up the burnout? Is that also part of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the giving up. Yeah. What happens is that literally that muscle, the chooser part of the brain, not really a muscle, but you know what I mean, metaphorically. If it's not being used, if it doesn't get to exercise, it gets flabby, it gets tired, it gives up. Because it's like, well, why am I going to even try to choose something when I'm not going to get it? It's like that frustration thing. You don't keep knocking at a door if no one ever answers. You stop eventually, right? So that's the same with the choosers, that they need to know that, oh, I can make choices. My human is going to pay attention and is going to honor my opinions. And then they'll communicate to you. And the way that they're communicating is often with body language, unless you're an animal communicator like me, in which case we have other choices. But at the most basic level, people sharing their life with an animal is to observe, is the dog moving towards something or away from something? Is the dog staring out that window? Is the dog staring at the door? What does that mean?
I believe that we just get used to being the caretaker and we think we're doing the right thing. I'm going to take him out. I'm going to give him this food. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And that's all wonderful. It's all great. It comes from a great spot. Yeah. But you're taking away their freedom of choice. Yeah. And I can't wait to go home and grab 2 treats. And I literally just bought him new treats last night.
Okay.
And I threw him one last night, but now I'm going to go to, an older one. And I'm actually curious which one is going to resonate.
Right.
And part of me.
He can have both, but just him choosing the act of saying, I want the one on the left, or I want the one on the right. And that he gets that one because he made a choice, and then he can have the other one. That's fine too. Or you can add a third one. I mean, you can make the game as long as you want, but as simple as that allows him to feel, wow, I can choose. You'll see, he'll think it's the funnest game in the world. You know what I mean? You can buy all these expensive toys. It's nowhere near as much fun as getting to make a choice where the human is giving them the choice and honoring that choice. That's a fun game.
But we forget that. We don't realize it, and again, we're all busy in our worlds and
everyone is,
million miles a minute. I actually feel guilty that I've taken away some of his choices when they're so easy to be there. Yeah. And there are times, like he sleeps in my bed, and when I'm going upstairs, he's downstairs, and I'll just, go, and he knows, and then he'll come running up.
Yeah.
I guess I'm giving him a choice. You can be up here if you want to. You don't have to, but certainly come on in. And, I close the door so the cats don't get in. But I guess I am giving choices, but we all need to really open up that freedom of choice.
Yeah. Well, even with that, it just makes sure that it is a choice, that he's not just doing it to be obedient, and that he's actually choosing. So I do a lot of that with doors here where I am, saying, you want to come in? You want to come in? And it's okay if they don't want to come in. So just little moments like that. You want to sit on the couch with me? It's okay if they don't want to. Just so that they know that it's okay to choose either thing. So just little moments that you maybe would do routinely, you could just think of it as asking a question. You want to eat now? And then you get up and walk the bowl together, because then what it does is triggers in their brain. Oh, I get to participate in this choice. I know it sounds simple, but it does over time have a beneficial effect. If you look at it like a relationship rather than like an ownership.
Well, I look at it at seniors, and quite honestly, my mom was very active, went to work into her 80s, not even kidding, was still driving. Wow. She had some cancer issues, and then that's where all of that stopped. And then she quickly declined.
Exactly.
And then I look at it that way in terms of our pets. It sounds like the same exact thing.
Well, that's what we do to old people in this society is we warehouse them. They get put into these places and then they have less and less and less choice in those environments, almost none, just like what dogs in the shelter are getting. And so, as a society, we need to really look at that, then recognize that the freedom of choice is very essential. I don't want to say it's the only essential, but it's very essential. And we need to change how we relate to animals and to humans.
We must,
yes,
because it's sad.
It's sad.
Looking at the shelter situation, I never looked at it in that way. I looked at it as, well, they got a place and eventually somebody will adopt them. And I never want to say this, or could be worse, because you're just bringing on the thought of worse energetically, but they've lost the freedom of choice.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I'm very grateful that shelters exist, and I know they do the best they can with the resources that they have. But if they understood this, it would help. It would help if they said, okay, in addition to the fact that the dog needs food and water and a walk, they need some freedom of choice time. So there needs to be a yard where they get to play in the yard. And I know that's not possible for every shelter, but we want to get to the point where more shelters do that. More shelters look at freedom of choice time as being as essential as anything else to their well-being, to their emotional well-being.
And it's just education, because I didn't know about any of this until you started talking about it, Jeannie. And now I see the importance of it. So how do we find out more about the organization?
Well, the first thing is I have a book called The Human Animal Connection, and people can order that on Amazon. And in about 2 months, it will be available as an audiobook. So that's pretty exciting. Cool. And they can also go to our website, which is thehumananimalconnection.org. I know it's a long name, but thehumananimalconnection.org. They can sign up for our free newsletter. And also I work with clients remotely. So people are having issues with their animals and they want to learn how to make life better for their animals. They can get in touch with us through our website or through you, and we can help them. So, yeah.
I've never heard the freedom of choice, and so important. And that's where you are unique in what you do.
Yeah.
You bring these things to light, and they are so important. Yes, the fundamentals are important, but this is also important to our pets and our animals.
Important, because if you recognize that they have opinions, that means that you recognize that they have emotions, that they have desires, that they have thoughts, they have feelings. And giving them freedom of choice is one of the best things you can do for mental health.
Yeah.
If you look at our society, what is the thing we do when people have done a terrible thing? We put them in prison, right? We take away choice. That is what we do. We have that perspective of bad person, take away choice, put them in prison, throw them in prison, put them in solitary. That's the worst thing we can do to somebody, and then our animals, it's an idea. I mean, freedom is such an important American idea, but we don't recognize all the little ways in which it's important to our animals.
Wow. When you put it that way, no words.
I made you wordless.
You did. And thanks for guilting me, but you know what, and the rest of us, but in a good way, because again, it comes from a good place. We're taking care of them. We're loving them. We're providing shelter, what we think is good food, all of that. But this is important too. Jeannie, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's good to be with you.
Yeah, good stuff. And look forward next time we talk.
Yeah.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.